Welcome everyone to another Savvy Resource webinar. We are super excited to have you guys here today. We have an amazing webinar lined up, The Art of Military House Hacking. Before I introduce our guests, and just so you know, this is brought to you by Active Duty Passive Income. A little bit about Savvy. We are here to support transitioning veterans by educating them on their basic federal entitlements and customizing resources to help support their goals once they get out. Our guest today is actually Mike Foster, who is SAVI Vet. So we're super excited to have him. And I'm going to go ahead and let him give his introduction and presentation here in a second. But before we continue, if you guys are joining us on our webinar, thank you so much for signing up. We may have something special for you afterwards. So make sure that you check your inbox after this has expired and make sure that you pay attention to any upcoming webinars that are going to be taking place. You can certainly register for all of those for free. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, please do share this with your fellow vets. We want to make sure that we get out this great information to as many veterans as possible. And if you're catching us on replay, thank you so much for joining us and coming to our page. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce Mr. Mike Foster. Tell us about yourself, Mike.
What's going on, guys? How you doing out there? Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you so much, Savvy, for all the awesome stuff that you guys do. Really excited to be here. My name is Mike Foster. I am the podcast host and co-founder of Active Duty Passive Income. We are a network for military and veteran real estate investors around the world. So we're excited to really go on here and kick off this presentation on the art of military house hacking. Super excited about it. What it is it essentially is using your VA loan to create benefits for really maximizing the wealth, right, that you can build and getting started on your real estate investing journey. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to talk about understanding when it makes sense to buy. We're going to talk about learning tools and resources that you have available to you and understanding how you can use your VA loan benefit to purchase your home the right way, and then strategies that you can use to accelerate and maximize your wealth earning potential. When does buying make sense? All right, we're going to look at two courses of action here. And what we're going to talk about is the cost of renting versus the cost of buying. So if you go to your first duty station or whatever, wherever you're at, right, you are paying a certain amount of month for monthly rent. Let's just say you're in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, right? 1,200 square feet. It's going to cost you about $1,250 in a certain area. Let's say your area is Norfolk, Virginia, right? Because this rent is probably not even close to what you're going to see in, let's say, San Diego, California, right? But let's just use this for example.
Hey, Mike, I apologize for the interruption, but we cannot see your presentation.
Uh-oh. Okay. I apologize. Let me go ahead and fix that here.
You may just need to share your screen. That might be it.
Yeah, you guys are looking at my face, huh?
We love seeing your face, but we would definitely want to make sure that we get that quality information so everybody can see what you're chatting about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I apologize about that, guys.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's go ahead and start that over. All right, cool. So now that you guys can actually see my screen. All right, cool. So art of military house hacking. Let's do this. All right, so like I said again, understanding when it makes sense to buy. You're going to learn about your VA loan benefit, and then we're going to talk about how to buy the right way, because that's really going to give you that buying power right from the jump. And then we're going to talk about strategies that you can use to maximize your earning potential by building wealth and making money from the empty space in your home, right? So when does it make sense to buy? Here we are talking about those two courses of action that I mentioned previously. All right. So again, Norfolk, Virginia, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, let's say 1,200 square feet. You're going to spend about $1,250 in rent, right? Now that's not money going into your pocket. That's going into your landlord's pocket. And look how much you're going to spend over the course of one tour. 3 years. That's $45,000 that you're putting into someone else's pocket. Now, let's say you are in California, right, where your rent is 2 times this amount. That's a lot of money that you are not putting away into something that you can capitalize on. Now, if you're going to buy, right, your mortgage is going to be about $1,000 a month, right? That's principal, interest, tax and insurance all put together. Now, over the course of those 3 years, with just the difference alone that you're paying in your mortgage versus your rent, you're saving about $9,000. But you're also building $20,000 in equity, because what you've done is you've created a bank account of your home, which is the point. But now, also, why real estate, right? Because everyone always thinks there's so many different things out there that I can invest in. Why should I put my money in real estate? Well, I'll tell you exactly why, right? There, you've got 5 ways that you profit from real estate, and they may not all be ways that you thought about, right? So, in the situation that we were talking about for renting versus buying, if you're the landlord, you're earning money in cash flow. So, if you're renting for $1,250 a month and your mortgage payments plus your tax and insurance, right, all your expenses come out to $1,000, you're cash flowing 200 a month, 250 a month, excuse me, right? And that adds up, right? That adds up to an extra paycheck that you can use for something. You're paying down equity in the long run, right? You're creating that extra bank account, but you're also gaining appreciation the longer that you hold this property. And that is a really, really good thing. You never want to invest for appreciation, and we'll talk about that later, but you always want to keep that as the icing on the cake. And you get some amazing tax incentives for owning real estate as well, right? We're talking depreciation, right? We're talking about the benefit that you get to write off expenses that you have to put into the property, and you hedge against inflation if you continue to raise your rents up against what the inflation rate is every single year, right? So they're really, really good ways that you can earn a lot of money. But let's just talk about some of the intangibles, okay? The fact that land is finite and they're not making any more of it means that your land, right, the property that your house sits on is going to grow in value over time, right? And you have the opportunity to build passive income. Guys, if you move around from base to base over the course of your military career, you can build 5, 10, however many streams of income that are all paying you. So you don't have to rely on your government paycheck or your pension if you choose to stay in that long. If you don't, then hey, if you're able to pick up 1 or 2 properties before you transition out, that's an awesome, stable income coming in, right, on the first of every month, while you now get to figure out how you're going to recreate yourself. The cash flow that we're always talking about, right? You want to make sure that you are investing for cash flow now, not appreciation later, because that's a later benefit, right? That's like your nest egg, right? That's like the money that you put away in a TSP and hope to use that in retirement. Let your homes build up in value over time. That way you don't worry about buying the nicest house in the neighborhood and then praying to God that, by the time you want to use that money, you haven't experienced a market collapse, right? So you want to make sure that the numbers make sense first. And then real estate, of course, helps you build wealth faster than any other investment class, guys. This is true. And talk to financial advisors about it. It is risky, okay? We're not saying that real estate is not risky, but with the benefits, the 5 cash flow centers that I mentioned in the previous slide, right? This helps you accumulate wealth very, very quickly if you do it right, okay? And that's the important thing. And then, of course, right, real estate, if you are an investor, you are not paying taxes by being an investor, right? There's this book. It's absolutely amazing. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. Robert Kiyosaki wrote it. I highly recommend that you guys go read that. And it talks about how business owners and investors do not pay tax because of the tax benefits that they get at the end of each year and how those tax benefits leverage against their income. All right. And then leaving a legacy that lasts. This there is really just as simply put, you're leaving a legacy, guys, for your kids, for your grandkids. You think about the Vanderbilts, right? Way back when they had all this real estate, what happened? Their kids inherited it and then they spend it all away, right? But there are ways that you can put your assets that you've built underneath certain umbrellas where that can't happen, right? Or that doesn't happen. And getting into real estate can be a very, very amazing way to build even a small amount of wealth for your family down the line and completely change the dynamic. But let's talk real quick about the barrier to entry, because a lot of people get so anxious when they think about, oh, real estate's not something I can do, sir. I'm not an officer, or I'm just a junior enlisted. That's not true. There is no limitation for your rank, your income, your location, or your education, guys. The only barriers to real estate is your thinking, right? First, it starts in the mind and your creativity that you can use to just create an awesome situation for yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, there's literally ways that you can buy real estate without putting your money down. I didn't say no money, right? But I said your money down. You can totally do that, but it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of determination. And this is all benefits, all things that intangibles that we've learned in the military, which makes us the best people to get into this game. All right. Truly, truly passionate about it. Now let's go into some tools and some assets. Now, the fact that we constantly move around gives us opportunity, all right? Because we're not talking about, staying in one market that may be really, really expensive and hard to get into, or say really competitive and hard to get into as well. I mean, we'll talk about real quick San Diego and Norfolk. San Diego is a very, very expensive market to jump into. The taxes are very high and the prices of property are very high. So that can be very intimidating in of itself. But just because you're stationed there doesn't necessarily mean you'll be there forever, right? You may be going to another duty station, whether it's for training, whether it's for, a full PCS, whatever the case may be, you will get to another station at some point. So take advantage of it, right? But while in Norfolk is a lot cheaper of a market, but the competition is very high, very, very steep because there are so many investors in this market too, right? So there's a little dichotomy there. But because you're moving around, it gives you the opportunity to see different markets and allows you to get into different spaces. Your BAH is an amazing budgeting tool, guys. Amazing budgeting tool. I'm going to talk about that more in the next slide, so I'm not going to touch on it here, but keep in mind the fact that you can use your BAH to start yourself off in your investments the right way. TSP is great. All right. Just a real quick blurb on it. TSP is awesome because you can do a lot more with it than you thought you could. All right. I don't know how many of you guys out there actually put money in TSP, but I used to be a financial advisor, and I'm telling you, I'd be betting really good odds that 50% of you that are actually putting money in there don't actually know what you're putting your money into. Okay. So you definitely want to educate yourself on the TSP, especially with the new changes with the blended retirement system. But think of this, right? Think of the idea that you can borrow from your TSP and put that into an investment such as real estate and pay yourself back. That is a possibility, and it's a tool in your tool belt. I'm not saying it's something that you might want to do. That may be a little bit outside of your risk tolerance, and that's okay. But for those of you that are looking for ways to get started, that could be a game changer for you, right? And that's something that you can use. And your VA loan, we're going to talk about later on. Let's go to BAH real quick, okay? Because I want to highlight this point. That same 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that I spoke about at the beginning of the presentation is something that an E4 can afford, okay? So it's not something that you have to be an officer to do. Take a look at this. With BAH, which of course is tax-free, by the way, right? You can increase your income and you can budget that $1,283 you have a month going into a mortgage payment, and then saving the rest, maybe keeping that for any maintenance costs that you need to have, right? And then when you leave, now you get a new set of BAH in your new area. You have a renter, a tenant that is paying off your property, and you have extra income that's coming in. So do you see how this can really snowball for you? I'm telling you guys, it's amazing. Now, let's go into your VA loan benefit because this is absolutely killer. And there is not enough education out there about the VA loan. Okay. So, yes, this is a loan that you can use to have zero money down. Now, you need to be very careful because that's 100% leverage that you have on a property that can really come back and bite you in the butt if you're not careful with it. If you go and buy the best house in the neighborhood, you are putting 100% debt on that home, which means that if the market does indeed come down, you are over leveraged on that house. Your mortgage is still the amount that it is, but the value of your property is less. Now, that's not necessarily important if you're still cash flowing month to month from your expenses, right? So don't let that scare you. But what that means is you need to be smart when you buy. All right. Let's talk about the funding fee because everyone's like, oh, this funding fee, blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, if you're outside the military and you're getting a disability rating of 10% or more because you've connected with Adrienne and she's helped you out, or anyone else from SAVI and they've helped you out, listen, guys, you can get that funding fee removed, and you can even get that funding fee refunded to you. So that's money back in your pocket. And that's awesome. All right. But let's talk real quick about the opportunities you have with your VA loan, because a lot of people don't realize that you can do more than just buy a single family house. You can rehab a house, guys. Back in 2018, they created a VA renovation loan where now the bank will give you money to do upgrades into your house. And it used to only be cosmetic. Now you can bust through walls, you can fix up your roof, you still can't repair foundation from what I'm understanding with some lenders that I've been talking to. But this is constantly changing, because as we continue to grow with the changes to this VA loan, they're adding new things. So be sharp, be on the lookout. Make sure you guys are looking out to see what you can do. Get creative. You can construct a house from the ground up. You have to buy the land and you have to buy the plans to develop that house, but you can create a home, right? And that's awesome. Get something that's brand new with new and upgraded, up-to-date materials, instead of having to renovate something that may have been around, say, in the 40s or the 50s, right? Where you may be dealing with asbestos and a whole bunch of other problems like lead and all that. But you create something brand new and it's awesome. You can buy a mobile home, right? A mobile home is an awesome way. I did a podcast with a gentleman by the name of Randy Broyles. He started with his VA loan buying mobile home parks, double and single wides, out in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Crazy, right? But they're very, very cheap to get. I mean, mobile homes maybe cost you about 20 grand, 15, 30, however, within that ballpark. And it's an awesome way because they generate a lot of income, because they'll rent for $800 a month, right? So it's an awesome way to get started. You can do a townhome or a condo, but be very careful if you're doing condos or townhomes because of those fees, right? Those association fees that can really kill your ROI, or your return on investment, when you are putting in a renter at the end. And also, you need to make sure that the associations are able to get funded by the VA loan, right? Because there are some contingencies where you actually have to go and make sure that the condos associations are approved by the VA. Okay. But you can also buy a multifamily up to 4 units. Guys, this is killer. Okay. I'm telling you, this right here is what you need to look for. Okay. If you are a single bachelor, single bachelorette, or let's say you have maybe one kid and a pet, but your family doesn't mind going through the transition, this is the best way to get started. All right. Buy a multifamily up to 4 units, because you can live in one unit and you can rent out the others. And in a lot of cases, even with a duplex, you can get your mortgage paid off by the rent that you have coming in. And then now your BAH, right, your housing allowance, becomes money in your pocket that you can use to do other things, like, say, investing in another property, or let's say, I don't know, make a car payment if you wanted to get a car as well, right? Now your home is paying itself off, and you can use your money for other things or building more wealth, right? You can do the same thing if you bought a single family house now and just created extra space, right? By only living in one room and renting out the other rooms. We're going to talk about that later on. All right. This is very, very important. So I'm going to go through this because there's a lot to talk about, but I want you guys to definitely understand that you need to learn your market. And this becomes part of the buying right process, because there are certain things that you want to look for. You don't want to just buy a house anywhere. You want to make sure that the economy is growing in that area, right? There are jobs that are coming in. You want to make sure that the schooling in the area is nice, because you got to think, right? Who is going to come into your home when you leave? Is it going to be a family? Is it going to be someone working, say, in a shipyard? Or is it going to be someone working at a power plant? Who knows, right? What is around you? You want to get to know your area. You want to know the crime in the area. You want to know the geography. You want to know if there's potential for job growth, right? Or if there are businesses that are closing down. If there are businesses closing down in your market, guys, you may not want to buy a house in that area. I'm just saying, right? So keep that in mind. But what's the unemployment rate, right? Are there any projects? The transportation, did they open up double lane highways going into your town, right? There are certain indicators that you can look for. One of the questions that I always get all the time is, Mike, what do you look for in a market when you're looking to buy a house, when you're looking to invest? I'll tell you right off the top, I look for a Starbucks, I look for a Walmart, I look for a Target, right? I look for an Amazon. I look for big companies that are in that area and they're doing well. Why? Because a big company is not going to come into a market if there isn't opportunity there. Does that make sense? So if you're finding 5 Starbucks around your area, probably a good indication that you should buy a house. Just saying. All right, cool. Finances. All right. This is very important. Going to blow through this too because there's a lot to cover, but I want you guys to understand, and I was a command financial specialist, you have to make sure that you can afford a home before you just go up and do it. That's why I talk about the housing allowance being an awesome budgeting tool. You want to create that picture, and not only the picture for the short term, but the long term. If you have it in your head that you're going to buy a house every single duty station, you need to know what type of home you're going to buy. You want to know how much it's going to cost, and you want to stick as close to those numbers as possible. Because if you start blurring the lines, you start going out of budget, you start going out of scope, those costs are going to add up really quickly and it's not going to be as organized. So it's definitely good that you even seek advice, right? Go seek advice from, say, an accountant or, say, a command financial specialist in your command. Talk to them about what you're doing. Try to build that strategy. That way you can optimize your growth potential. And then this is super important, probably one of the most important slides on this presentation. Build your team. Guys, if you are going to invest outside of your market, this is crucial. So you might as well start by getting it right in your market. When you buy your first home, find a mentor, someone who has done it with you before, or done it in the past that can help guide you along your journey. Talk to a real estate agent, someone who's very, very knowledgeable in that area, in that market, who's been there for years. But don't just talk to any real estate agent, okay? Because this is another common question that I get. You don't want to just talk to any real estate agent that's going to sell you a home, because I promise you, they're all trying to sell you a home, okay? That's the one commonality. You want to talk to a real estate agent who has invested before. Why? Because they're going to be the ones that know what it is that you need to look for in that property that you buy. Is it going to make sense when it rents afterwards? Right? Is it going to make sense with the expenses? They're going to have that investor mindset where they're going into that property and looking at it with you for the first time. And they'll be able to point out certain things that you're going to want to watch for when you take over that home. So that's absolutely crucial. A property manager is another amazing person to talk to, because the property manager can tell you what the area is like in that place, right? In that place you're trying to buy a home. They can tell you the demographic of tenants that you're going to assume when you leave. They're going to tell you the market value rent that you need to assume when you're factoring into that to your numbers before you purchase. Okay, so these are awesome people to have. A lender is another awesome person to have, because they can be the one to help you out throughout the process. Now, there are 2 types of lenders out there, so be very, very careful on who you're going to. If you go to a big bank like USAA or Navy Federal, sure, they might throw out these awesome perks to say, hey, we'll give you cash back at your close if you use our approved realtor, or if you do this, you do that. They are big companies for a reason, guys. All right. They're big companies because they're trying to make a lot of money, typically. Yes, they may help you out with this and that and have amazing customer service, but the fees that you get charged are a whole lot more than if you found a mortgage broker who it doesn't work for a big bank and doesn't have a large chop chain of people that need to get paid on their way up to selling that loan to a bigger bank. If you find a mortgage broker, chances are you're going to find a lot lower rates. Okay, so keep that in mind. A contractor is another awesome person to have on your team, because your contractor can tell you what things are going to cost when you do certain projects. All right, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, a tax professional and a legal advisor, that really is only necessary when you're getting into the bigger stages of the game, like going from, say, 3 fourplexes, or let's say you've got 5 properties around. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have at the early stages, especially if you're trying to get into real estate investing as a career outside the military. But, keep in mind, it's not necessary. A lot of people say, oh, do I need a legal advisor on my first property? You really don't. Okay. So think ahead, guys. That's what we're talking about here. All that stuff that I've talked to you about prior to is just making sure that you're building your steady plan and you're setting yourself up for success down the road. It's absolutely crucial. Okay. Now let's talk real quick about the process on how you go through purchasing a house. And this is for those of you who haven't purchased one. If you have purchased a house before, please forgive me. It's going to be very quick. All right. So the first thing you want to do is get pre-approved from the bank. You go to your lender, you get pre-approved for your loan, but you also get pre-approved to use your VA loan. All right. Lenders can do this for you at the same time. They get what's called your certificate of eligibility, and it usually only takes about 24 hours to do so. Okay. Now, at that point, once you're pre-approved for the amount that you can spend, okay, not the amount that you're allowed to with your VA loan, you want to find out how much you can buy in accordance with your budget, right? Working closely with your lender to go and find a home that fits that criteria, and maybe finding something that's a little bit over. That way, maybe you can negotiate to get it into your criteria if it's a little lower, and now you get that property at a good deal. Okay. And then once you're at that stage where you found that property, place an offer. All right. Don't get anxious over it, guys. I'm telling you, a lot of people get so nervous putting in that first offer. And I know it's cool. I know it's an emotional process. I know it, I was there. Okay. Trust me. But as long as the numbers make sense on your paper and you get the numbers to fit in that purchase price, make it happen. And when you make that offer, always make it with a little bit less. There may be certain things that you face when you're talking to a property owner who says, I want you to put in an offer first before you come see the property, especially if it's rented, right? Like a fourplex, let's say. If you are buying a fourplex and all of the units are rented, a lot of owners will do that. They say, I want an offer to come in before I go and disrupt the tenants and show you the property. Because what's going to happen is if you do buy, you're going to have to kick one of those tenants out because you have to live in the property, right? That is the primary reason of using the VA loan, okay? But that's not a bad thing, okay? Tell them I'm going to make an offer based off of what I am assuming I'm going to have, right? And that the offer may increase if everything checks out, okay? That's just a common quick fix. But don't worry about it, and everything's negotiable. Even on the back end, you can come up or down on that price if you find things and good reason to do so, okay? Now, when you have it under contract, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the phase where that negotiation becomes a little heavy. It's called the due diligence phase. You want to make sure you're getting an inspection. You want to make sure that you're getting your wood destruction, insects, and all that stuff inspected, right? Because you don't want to find out that you have termites sitting under the foundation. You want to make sure the foundation is solid, right? You want to make sure that the electrical is up to code, the plumbing is up to code, right? And there's nothing out of spec with this home, especially the roof, okay? Another big thing is a warranty. If you can get a warranty on the house, I highly recommend it. They usually only cost a couple $100s, and it'll guarantee you for the first year or so. That way, if anything major breaks, like water heater and HVAC, anything big that you have to replace, all that stuff is covered. And sometimes you can get the seller to cover that as well. So that's good. All right. And then you go into closing. All right. And closing now is so robust, guys, you can do it over your computer. All right. I closed on properties out in Pittsburgh that I bought over my computer through a DocuSign app, right? It's all virtual now, right? I mean, there are still places that go a little bit old school. Sometimes they'll mail you the paperwork and you got to get it, notarized and all that stuff. But most of the documents that you can do are now done virtually. So that's pretty awesome. All right. Now, again, buy right, okay? Do not get emotional when it comes to these purchases. I'm telling you, that's going to be the first mistake that you make. You're going to go to a house that you see, you're going to get all excited, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can see myself living here. This is amazing. The kitchen is done. All this stuff is really nice, and everything's so perfect. Run away, all right? Run away. If it's your spouse, if it's your kids that's doing all that, right? Pull them away and say, hey, nope, we're going to go take a look at this other one. Thanks, right? I'm kidding, but I'm really not. I'm telling you, like, you gotta take it with a grain of salt, and you want to make sure that everything goes according to the plan that you set out. And then also seek value, okay? The best thing that you can do going into a house, especially with our renovation loan, is to find a house that doesn't have granite countertops, that doesn't have, the recessed lighting and the awesome master bathroom, right? Go in and put that stuff yourself. All right. Because we're going to talk about that in the next section. All that stuff is amazing for you and your bottom line. Okay. So don't get emotional. Key. All right. So this is really the meat and potatoes here, because now we're going to talk about military house hacking strategy. Okay. This is what you want to do to maximize the most bang for your buck in the house that you have. Okay. You want to rent the empty space in your home. If you can live in one unit, live in one door, like a one bedroom, and rent out the other bedrooms, do it. Okay. Do it. Even if your market rent for a one bedroom house in your area is like $800 or $700 a month, charge your friends $500 for it, right? They get a lot less rent that they will have to pay anywhere else, and they're adding money into your pocket, right? So now your BAH, which you're using to budget for your house, of course, is getting supplemented by the rental income that you're getting from your own home. Okay, if you have a garage, use that. There's an app out there. I'm forgetting what it's called right now. Maybe I'll add that in the notes later on. But there's an app out there that allows you to share your garage space and rent that out to people who just want to put their junk there. Like, hey, I mean, a lot of people don't use their garage for their cars anymore. So if you're going to use your garage for your junk, you might as well clear that stuff out, go through your junk, and let your garage space make money for you, holding someone else's junk. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So like, come on, just get smart and do that. You know what I mean? Something else you could do, your Airbnb. And I absolutely love vacation rentals. Guys, you can make so much money off of renting your spare bedroom or renting out your house. Okay. So my first property that I purchased, it was a duplex out in Virginia. I was renting out the bottom. And then when I left on deployment, I rented out the top on Airbnb. Guys, I made my first year's mortgage payment in just that summer alone that I was gone on deployment. The next year, after I figured out how to run and manage it. Oh, and by the way, just real quick, I was managing that from deployment. I had my friends helping me out here, and I would connect with them online whenever I'd had internet, which was amazing because I got the bulk of my listings booked up prior to me even stepping off on deployment. And then like onesie twosies came in. So whenever I had internet connection, I'd just respond back to them. And it was super simple. Done, right? But yeah, you can totally do it. The next year, once I figured out how to optimize stuff, which I went out again on another deployment, I was able to go in and almost double my money. Okay. So guys, I'm telling you, don't sleep on vacation rentals. All right. Make sure first, of course, that it's legal in your area. You have to do that. And you want to make sure that you're playing by the rules. But once you've done that, which is really not that hard to figure out, just go in and make it happen. Take action. Create your listing, get a professional photographer to take good pictures, figure out what it is that you want to do with that property, who your target audience is. Is it a family? Is it travelers? Is it whoever, right? Coming through, and just rent it. All right. You'd be surprised in how much money that you can make just by charging nightly for your rooms. Okay. Building value. This is absolutely huge. And this is kind of what I was talking about before. Find a home that you can create, right? Not a home that you can just buy and move in and everything is good to go. And now you're just going to wait until that property rots. Like, find a house that you can create value in. All right. If you buy a house, let's say that's worth on the market $200,000, but you buy it for $260,000, right? Now, there are some stuff that you can do in this house, like fix the kitchen, right? You can create the granite countertops. You can open up the walls to make an open space. Maybe you can raise the ceiling. Who knows, right? If you can take the master bathroom and do that up and make it really nice. Or let's say you can add a bathroom or add a bedroom, right? You want to add square footage. Guys, what I've just mentioned is the quickest way to add tens of thousands of dollars to the value of your home. So now you took a home that was worth $200,000. You put $45,000 of money from your VA home loan, but you've bumped the valuation up to maybe $260,000, right? And you bought that thing for what? For what I say, 160. You know what I mean? Like, that's amazing, guys. I'm telling you guys, that's crazy. You can create so much value in your home. And now when you're ready to leave, you have all that equity built in. You have a tenant that's paying off your mortgage, and you can refinance that cash out from the bank, get your VA loan back, and put that money into another property or something. Do the same thing all over again, but you can do it. All right. Starting a business is another awesome and amazing way to generate income in your house. Right. We constantly hear I'm not gonna say it's an excuse. That's a bad word, right? But we constantly hear the reason, Mike, I can't get a multifamily property because my family we don't want to do it. It's not gonna make sense. That's completely okay. Do you have a room that you can create an office? If so, amazing, do it. Okay. Find some way to create a little bit of an income. Maybe it's a blog, right? Maybe it's you know what? Actually, I had an awesome story. A spouse that was, a stay-at-home mom. She had a lot of space in her backyard. What she did was she created a garden, and she would take the gardening, the extra stuff that she wouldn't use at home, and go and sell that in a farmer's market. Amazing, right? She had a whole little online business that she started from her website, advertising what she did and where people can find her. And she started her own little small business. She wasn't making, tens and twenties of thousands of dollars, but she was making enough to supplement the mortgage, right? Supplement the income that her husband was providing right through the military. And she had amazing tax write-offs at the end of the year, because when you start a business from home, you can take a portion of that house back in taxes at the end of the year. You can write that off, and it's an amazing benefit, guys. So it's just a little bit, right, to supplement. And then the last one is about becoming energy efficient, using, let's say, solar power, right, to create another income stream in your house. Guys, it's crazy. There's this concept out there called net metering. Okay, you need to learn it. When you put solar panels on your home, and this is going to speak to all our military folks out there who are leaving at, let's say, 5 in the morning and coming back at like 10 o'clock at night, right? When you're not using power, those solar panels absorb energy and they trickle through your system and go back into the grid. So what you're doing is you're selling the energy that you're not using back to the city, and the city is giving you a rebate on your bill for the energy that you don't use. So if you've gone a whole billing cycle not using any energy, they will either cut you a check or they will add it as a credit to more energy that you can use later on in the next month and not have to pay for it. You see what I'm talking about? So now you're almost at the point, if you've combined multiple of these strategies where you're living for free, maybe you're getting paid to live in your house, and you're building so much money into your pocket to go and use to invest that later on to create your long-term wealth. And that, guys, is the strategy of military house hacking. It's so crazy when you get all this stuff to snowball, and then you take what you've done in one home and you do it in the next. You do it in the next. All right. Guys, I interviewed someone on the podcast who had done it 10 years prior to them transitioning out of the military. The guy served 23 years in the Air Force. The dude built over $1 million in assets in just those 10 years alone by taking the strategy and applying it. And you guys can too. It's not hard. It is not hard. I started out this process with that duplex I told you that I bought, right, with $60,000 in debt. I was in the negative for net worth, right? And in just the 3 years that I've spent house hacking my place before transitioning out of the military, now I've increased my net worth to $500,000. 3 years. You guys can do this too. I know every single one of you guys can go out there and crush it. All right. Thank you so much for your time. And if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer all of them for you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I don't know about you guys, but that was some really amazing information. And Mike, we got some questions for you. So,
all right.
First question, is it smart to buy a rental like a duplex in a hot market while homes are at their peak? Also, what is the solid amount of cash flow after AII, PITI, and 10% for vacancy and caps are accounted for? And I apologize if I messed any of that up. Please clarify.
No worries. No worries at all. Yeah, absolutely. So for let's just answer that first question, right? The whole duplex thing. So the market is right now, yes, at its peak. A lot of people are talking about how it's 2019, right? Everyone's looking at the future for this next election and where the market can go. What you need to understand is you need to look at the historics of your market first before you make any assumption about how that market's going to go. You may be in a market like California, let's say around LA or something, or maybe even New York, right? Where in the city, it's a very, very desirable area to live. And so those markets fluctuate all the time, up and down. Or you could be in a market like Norfolk, Virginia, right, in the Hampton Roads community, or you can be in a market like Fayetteville, North Carolina, where the market rises up very, very slow and comes back down very, very, very slow. Okay. So depending on the market that you're in, it may still be a good time to invest. And regardless of whatever, as long as your numbers work, guys, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what happens to the value of your home. If you are cash flowing, keep it. All right. Keep it. There were moments during the last recession where people would go underwater on their mortgage, but they were rental properties and they were still cash flowing. They still had renters paying their money on time, but people just were uneducated. They thought that, oh my gosh, my house is now worth a lot less than what I owe on my mortgage. How am I going to survive? And they would take their keys and bring it to the bank, literally bring it to the bank. I was talking to a banker about this like 2 months ago, and they were telling me this unusual phenomenon. I was like, oh my God, like what? No, okay, no. If your property is still cash flowing, hold on to it. At some point, the market will come back up. But as long as you're cash flowing every single month and the rents in your area don't drop, then you're good to go. Okay. Can we repeat the part of the PITI one more time? Adrian, I don't know if you
yeah, sure
or is
thing.
there an
Sorry.
area that I can
And please again forgive me if I mess any of this up. So it says also, what is a solid amount of cash flow after AII, PITI, and 10% for vacancy and caps are accounted for?
okay.
Just as a point of clarity, this is from William. He said, I am in the Hampton Roads market. I don't know if that helps.
Hampton Roads, let's go, baby. I'm out here in Norfolk, Virginia. That's what I'm talking about. Hampton Roads is a great market, man. Get into it. Okay. Don't be afraid of it. You can totally do it and still be successful. All right. So what we were talking about with all those acronyms, don't worry about them right now. Just understand that there are expenses, right? So a decent amount for you to cash flow, I'd honestly say if you can get 20% above the the average rental market, right? So what I mean by that, let's say your mortgage, all your expenses come out to about $1,000, round numbers. So if you're going to get 20%, right, that $200 above that, that's pretty decent cushion, right? That's a pretty decent cushion to have, but there's really no like figure on that. So what I always tell people is look at the 1% rule. That's what we call it, right? In the investor world, the 1% rule means that if your purchase price is, if your rental price is 1% of your purchase price, you're sitting good, right? That is at least a deal that you want to deep dive in. If it's going to cost you more to renovate and fix things up just to get it to that point where it's going to rent well, then you may want to see how that's going to play into your numbers. But as long as you're looking at a property baseline that rents for, let's say, $1,000 a month, and the purchase price is $100,000, that is going to fit you in a really good spot. And as a real estate investor, you'll see, you talk to most of real estate investors, and they will tell you that the rents don't really keep up past $150,000 to $200,000 and up, right? Meaning it's a lot easier for you to find a property that rents at 1%, $150,000 and below, than it is for you to find something $150,000 and above, right? You won't find too many properties in a lot of markets at $200,000 renting for $2,000 a month. So keep that in mind.
Awesome. And our next question, great question, is how do you find a mortgage broker?
Great question. Networking. That's the number one thing that I'll tell you. If you network into enough places, you'll find them, because they are in places where real estate investors are, because they want to get a lot of business. You can find a lot of groups on Facebook, nowadays that have great communities for networking for those types of mortgage brokers. But you can find them through networking. You can even do LinkedIn. If you do a search on LinkedIn, you can type in mortgage broker, and I'm sure you'll come up with a bunch of people in that area. That's probably one of the better ways to do that as well.
Great answer. And LinkedIn is definitely a really great networking tool. So I highly recommend that. Our next question, and Mike, they're not taking it easy on you. We got some really good questions over here. So
Right.
what are the property tax benefits for vets? I'm 90% disabled and I'm purchasing in SoCal, if that matters.
Okay, nice. So there aren't any crazy property tax benefits for vets, but 90% disabled, right? That means you have awesome benefits that, of course, Adrian can connect you with 100%. But that funding fee, you want to get that funding fee freed up. Okay, absolutely huge. And then, of course, there are benefits for being a vet if you're doing some type of veteran type rental situation. That's another common question that I hear. You get some amazing government credits when you're doing something like VA HUD hash, which is like a Section 8 for military veterans, right, or for homeless veterans. So that's definitely something good to look into as well.
Perfect. And I definitely do recommend that you guys, if you have any specific tax questions, definitely get with the tax professional on any of those components. But 100% permanent and total, those are the two criteria, are normally when you're going to start seeing some property tax exemption. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so our next question, when PCSing or moving, how do you determine the best time to refinance from a VA to conventional loan in order to free up your VA loan?
Nice. Okay. So I would start by saying, or by asking yourself if you even need to. Okay. Because if you're, let's say, moving from, let's say, for instance, you're moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? West Coast, the property values are really, really high out there, but you found a property that is within your limit, right? And which right now, um, we still have those limits for our VA loan, right? Where it's like 484,000 on the on most lower income areas, and then it's like 690 or something like that in like place like California and even some parts of Hawaii. But you can use your VA loan twice and have two VA loans out at the same time. So that's the first thing I always recommend. Let's find out first if you even need to, because what you can do is if let's say you bought a $200,000 house here on the East Coast and you want to go and buy a $600,000 house on the West Coast. Now you've used 200,000 of your benefit here. So you've got 283 left if you were going to buy one in the same type of market. But you've gone now to the West Coast where your cap is increased to 680, let's say, round numbers, right? So now you have 480 left over in your benefit. Now you buy a house that's say $500,000 over here. Well, you've got a difference of 20,000. Now you need to bring 10 to 20% down at the closing table of that difference, right? So if 20,000 is the difference in the purchase price from your VA loan cap and that purchase, now you're just bringing 20% of $20,000, which is not a lot of money at all, right? So you don't necessarily need to refinance, and maybe you don't want to because the rate that you have for that VA loan is a lot better, right? But if you want to, I would try and find ways to use that military house hacking strategy to put that money that you're earning back into your mortgage. So you're building up that equity because, again, right, you have it 100% leveraged. So you want to build up more of that equity. So when you refinance and you have to put that 20% down because you're putting it into a conventional mortgage or you're putting it into a commercial mortgage, right? You can use some of that equity that you've built into that property by paying it down faster. Hope that answered your question.
Perfect. Thank you. And we are going to wrap up with two other questions. We do have about four remaining. And please, anybody that's currently signed into our webinar, please feel free to post all of your questions. I will touch base with Mike and get you guys all the responses. So you certainly get all that information. And at the end of this, I'm sure Mike will be kind enough to give us a way to contact him. So you can certainly touch base with him directly as well.
Super.
So let's see here. This is a two-part question. Is there a way to use your VA benefits to purchase properties on Guam, or must it be on the mainland? And then number two, what about outside of the US?
Yeah. So sorry, this is going to be a very quick answer for this one, guys. You can only use your VA loan on US soil, right? And it has to be a state, not a territory. So yeah, unfortunately, you can't use it on any of the international bases. You can't use it on any of our territories. It has to be one of the 50 states. But you can use your time while you're out there to really save up some of that extra money that you get, right? That COLA, to get yourself educated, start networking on forums and chats and this and that, right? So you can educate yourself, you get connected. So when you do go to a place you can use it, you're ahead of the game and you can really, really kick butt right from the jump.
Awesome. And our last question, I used my VA loan at my last station. Can I use it again when I PCS?
Yes, you can. You absolutely can. And I answered that in the last one too. So yep, go for it.
Awesome. Okay. And with that said, like I said, I do have a couple. And Mike, you tell me if you'd like one or two more questions, I can hit you with it. Otherwise,
Adrian, you know me. I love this stuff. I'm super passionate. I can keep going. So it's up to you.
so let me get you another one that was posted earlier. How do you get to know the metro area market? Does it matter which PM company you network with?
Great question. I'm so glad that this is either the last one or whatever. So the best way to find out awesome companies to work with, referrals. Network yourself with as many people as you can in that market. That's how you're going to get to know the market, number one. I mean, you can read about it on Google, right? Like I'll do a Google search on a market. There's an awesome website called citydata.com. If there's a way I can put that in there, I'll put that in there for you guys. But citydata.com, and it'll give you a whole bunch of demographics on the employment rates there, the economic growth, the population growth, all that stuff, right? But so that's a good way to start. But you always want to actually have boots on ground knowledge and experience in that market. So talking to investors, local investors in that area, and asking them, what are your opinions of the market? What are your opinions for companies that I should work with, for contractors, for this and that? Talk to people as if it's your first time doing it every single time, and ask them who they refer. If you ask enough people and you keep hearing the same response over and over again, right? The same property management company, chances are that's the best property management company to go with, because they're getting a lot of business and referrals, right? So that's definitely the best way to go about that.
Perfect. And with that said, Mike, if you don't mind sharing your contact information, how can people get a hold of you and certainly follow up with some of these questions?
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Definitely make sure that you guys educate yourself, you network, and you take action. Don't be afraid. If you guys want to contact me and my team, you can always hit us up at www.activedutypassiveincome.com. You can check out our podcast, or you can text ADPI to 444-999, and you can schedule a call with us so we can just give you advice on your situation. Just give you like 3 things that you can do to be successful from where you're at, and then boom, just go off into the sunset.
Love that. Love that. I really do hope that you guys take advantage of it. Mike has been awesome and amazing, giving us all of this quality information. I will make sure that everybody that has registered for our webinar today has all of his contact information. Any of those pending questions, we will certainly get you those responses here shortly. I thank you, Mike, for being such a wonderful guest and sharing, again, so much useful information. I know that this has been very valuable to everybody. We have some really great comments, really great questions that are pending. Again, I remind everybody, if you are joining us on Facebook Live, don't forget to register so that you can get notified of upcoming webinars. www.savivets.org/veterans, that is plural. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Bye,
Awesome.
everyone.
Bye.